Hello there. Today we are going to be doing something a little bit different. Today we're going to be looking at one of the non-musical bits from Bo Burnham's Inside. It's the bit that I call the brand consultant bit. And if this shot looks familiar, it's because we saw it at the very end of our last video on how the world works. And that's because how the world works transitions directly into this bit. And then immediately after this bit is White Woman's Instagram. So we'll probably be doing that one next. Just so you know, because it's not like one of the more popular song bits, there isn't a full video of it online that we can use, but I did find a video on YouTube that had the audio, and I was able to kind of create a video that has the audio mixed with some different screenshots from the bit that has the subtitles and everything. So it'll be more still shots, but it will at least give us an approximation of what it would be like to watch the full video. Just again, because it's not, a song that we've all been listening to on repeat for the past 2 years. And if you're a newer Bo Burnham fan and have just kind of been discovering his stuff on YouTube, you may not have even seen this whole bit before. I wanted to try to get it as close as we can to watching the bit first, and then we can go back and sort of talk about it, the cinematography, and also the themes, or what I think his message is in this bit. So let's see if we can get that to work.
Hello, my name is Bo Burnham, and I am a former comedian turned social brand consultant. It's a very exciting time to be a brand. It's also a bit of a scary time because customers expect a lot more from their brands than they did in the past. During this incredibly necessary and overdue social reckoning that we're having in our culture, it is no longer acceptable for brands to stay out of the conversation. Consumers want to know, are you willing to use your brand awareness to affect positive social change, which will create more brand awareness? The question I ask the brands I work with is, are you going to be on the right side of history? The question isn't what are you selling or what service are you providing. The question is, what do you stand for? Who are you? Bagel Bites, all these big companies, they're so scared of all this social change, and I come in and I put their fears to rest. I tell them, just be honest. Tell your customers that JP Morgan is against racism in theory. The question is no longer, do you want to buy wheat thins, for example? The question is now, will you support wheat thins in the fight against Lyme disease? There's no sugarcoating it. The world is fucked up. And you've got a choice as a brand. You can hide and bury your head in the sand and hope it fixes itself, or you can roll up your sleeves and get to work and sell Butterfingers.
Okay, so now that we've listened to the whole bit, let's talk about it. So first of all, I love the black and white aesthetic. I love that it's set up really as kind of like a professional photo shoot sort of thing. I think this is the only time in the special that he uses this light and this backdrop. Because again, he's just creating that whole vibe of what a brand consultant doing an interview about their job would look like. And that continues in, in his costuming. I love that he's got like the man prees on and the shirt. And I love that he, later he's got, he's sitting with his legs kind of crossed, and it's just, he's really good at imitations, and so he does a good job imitating this sort of person. You'll notice it's hard to see when you're doing the still screenshots like this as opposed to actual video, but when he first comes in, you'll notice that the subtitles are in italics. That means that this Bo that we're seeing is not speaking. We're hearing it as like a voiceover. And so the reason for that is that it happens quite a few times where we hear the audio from the next bit before the shot actually changes. And I think, again, that's sort of like an artsy kind of stylistic choice that people making a video like this in real life would likely use. So while we're hearing him start to introduce himself, we see Bo go walk in, sit down. He's, kind of checking like, oh, is this the right camera that I should be looking at? Is my mic okay? Everything look good, And so he's kind of getting it's the behind the scenes footage of him getting all ready before the interview. Which, is a nice touch. And then, of course, we have the inside graphic that has now been changed, and again looks a little artsier, very sleek, and the inspirational music playing. We'll talk about the music a little more in a little bit. I'm glad you guys got to at least hear it when we did the clip, because it's gonna come into play in a minute here. And so he starts talking about how it's an exciting time to be a brand, and also a scary time. Before we go too much into the actual ideas that he's talking about, let's talk a little bit more about the cinematography. So he uses several different angles in this one. We get this shot where it's, the little bit further distance and it's straight on, and he's just kind of in the middle of the shot. We have this angle where we're seeing kind of like the left side of his face a little bit, and it's off to the side, just slightly. We have this one where it's, a close-up of the left side of his face in profile, and I love that this lets us see the little, I don't know if it's a ponytail or a man bun, I can't quite tell, but again, definitely that sort of almost like hipster, millennial social brand consultant sort of hairstyle you might have. So we have that angle, back to that one, and then there's one more, there's this one that is more of a medium shot, but from looking more at the right side of his face. So this setup and the way he jumps back and forth between them, it simulates, as like they do in a lot of these types of photo shoots, where you have multiple cameras going at once, catching you from different angles and things, so that when they finish the video, they can splice them together and make it look more polished, make it look more professional, make it look more visually interesting for the watcher, so it's not just one still shot, which of course makes it visually interesting for us watching this bit as well. And so, Bo does such a good job just kind of imitating and impersonating this type of person that he's pretending to be in this bit. I think that's probably, all I have to say about the setup of it, of how it looks and how it's lit and everything like that. But let's talk a little bit about the content. So we'll go back kind of to the beginning here. So again, I think inside, really, even though it's about other things and there's deeper stuff going on one level, it is sort of a commentary or a time capsule of what life was like during 2020 and 2021 when he was making it. And so during that time, he said it's a very exciting time to be a brand. And this continues, this is applicable still today. But he's talking about how companies and brands feel pressure to to get involved in social change, in kind of the wider conversations that we're having in our culture, and that people expect more from their brands than they did in the past, right? And that it's no longer acceptable for brands to stay out of the conversation. And I think we've definitely seen this over the past few years. I know I was thinking back, and even my library actually put out a statement after the killing of George Floyd, just saying that we stood with like the Black Lives Matter movement, and we're happy to serve the library community and to work towards more diversity and inclusion, and all that kind of stuff, right? And we thought it was important for us to put out a statement about that. And obviously, we're not some big brand, but a lot of the brands were doing that as well. Another thing that made me think of this more recently than 2020 was when they were having the conversations about the Don't Say Gay bill down in Florida, and a lot of people were being critical and really encouraging Disney to speak out against that bill. And to be fair, Disney never came out in support of it, but pretty much they were hearing from their customers and from employees, especially employees in the LGBTQ community, that it was not acceptable for them to just remain neutral and kind of stay out of the conversation, that that they needed to actively come out and speak out against the bill, which is something that I don't know that we would have expected of them, 20 years ago. And so, yeah, so part of it, I think his critique in this bit is twofold. I think part of it is of the brands themselves, right? Here he says, customers want to know, are you willing to use your brand awareness to affect positive social change, which will create more brand awareness? On some level, these companies, may put out statements about things or also raise money for like breast cancer and Lyme disease research and things like that, partially just to boost their reputation, to increase sales, because a lot of times it's like if they're giving a portion to charity, you're more likely to buy their product than somebody else's, right? And so it's like, do they really care about these things, or are they just doing it for their own reputation, for their own profit, to create more brand awareness? So part of it is definitely a critique of companies who do performative activism. And there's a lot of different references and kind of things about performative activism, or we talk about performative apologies and things in Problematic. So on one level, it's definitely about that. But I think it's also a critique of us as society, as customers, expecting these things from the companies. That, it used to be enough for them to tell us what they were selling and what service they're providing. Now we want to know, what do they stand for, right? Who are you, Bagel Bites? And, that's something that maybe we weren't asking of companies and brands in the past. And I do love, just be honest, tell your customers that JP Morgan is against racism, in theory, which again goes back to, we're going to put out a statement about it, but we're not necessarily going to want to do the hard work of actually addressing the problem or fixing things. We're not if it's going to make us uncomfortable or actually ask us to sacrifice something. Do you want to buy wheat thins? It's now, will you support wheat thins in the fight against Lyme disease? And then at the end here, he says, as a brand, you have a choice. You can hide and bury your head in the sand and hope it fixes itself, meaning the world, or you can roll up your sleeves and get to work and sell Butterfingers. And I think the point there that he's making is, your job, Butterfinger, is to sell Butterfingers. Your job is not necessarily to help end racism. Now, it's great if you can help be the solution to things like racism or other social issues that we're discussing in our culture, but that is not your primary job and role in our society, right? And so, I think it's a super interesting bit. I think about this all the time because we see this a lot, right? And again, I think it all comes down to motivations. Should we really be expecting that of customers? Or should they really be doing that? Or should they be kind of staying in their lane and not maybe exploiting these types of issues in order to really just increase their own profit? On an interesting note about the music and how it ties in. So during this part, especially, I think it's especially on like the wheat thins, this area, the music swells and it's actually the melody of the Healing the World with Comedy song from earlier. And so I think the reason he picked that song for this part might be that he's kind of connecting what brands are doing with what comedians or maybe other celebrities are doing, right? Like the idea that wheat thins are going to help end racism is about as realistic as thinking that he can heal the world with his comedy, that if your house is burning down, you can call him and he'll tell you a joke and it will all be better. And I think, he's also kind of being critical now of, celebrities who, again, are performative in their activism and act like they're going to help solve everything. They make sure that they use their platform in, their Oscar speech to address an issue or whatever. Same thing, I think, with using brands and companies using their platforms in order to affect positive social change. But in the end, whose fault is it? Is it their fault for doing it, or is it our fault for expecting them to? So that's at least the way that I interpret this bit. If you have other ideas about it, I could be way off base. You could have some totally other meaning that he's trying to convey. So if you have other thoughts about what you think he's trying to say through this bit, or other things that you noticed about it that you want to share, I love to hear about those. But otherwise, I think it's one of my favorite non-musical bits. I find myself quoting it a lot when things that remind me of this happen. And yeah, I think, like I said, I think we'll do White Woman's Instagram next because it is what comes immediately after this bit, I believe. And but I think there's a few other bits like this that we'll look at in the future. Hopefully, this format kind of worked the best we can do without official videos and things freely available online. But, anyways, yes, thank you guys so much for watching, and hopefully, we'll see you in the next video.